The great chamber of the Galactic Senate was buzzing with nervous energy. Representatives from 12 different species filled the curved rows of seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some breathed different gases. Others needed special temperature controls, but they all shared one thing in common today. They were all worried. Jake Morrison sat in the human section, his hands folded on the table before him. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes, the kind of eyes that had seen too many arguments and too many wars. Next to him sat Lisa Carter, a woman with short brown hair who kept checking her datapad. On his other side was Sam Williams, a young man who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. The humans had been coming to these meetings for almost 200 years now. They had helped stop wars, settle disputes, and keep the peace between species that had been fighting for thousands of years. Most of the time, other species liked having humans around. They were good at finding solutions that made everyone happy. But today felt different. The Thore delegation sat across the chamber in their special section. They were tall beings with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Their leader, Supreme Chancellor Thore, stood nearly 8 feet tall and wore robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. The Thore had been part of the galactic community for over 1,000 years. They had never been shy about reminding everyone of that fact. Chancellor Thore rose from her seat, and the chamber fell silent. Her voice carried icily across the room, deep and commanding. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," she began, "we have called this gathering to address a matter of great importance to the future of our civilization." Jake Morrison shifted in his seat. "Aye." He had heard that tone before, and it never led to anything. "Good," the Kepler Systems Thore continued. "Contain the richest deposits of neutron-heavy materials in known space. These materials are essential for the advanced energy systems that power our worlds and our ships. For too long, these resources have been wasted under the current sharing agreements." The Zephyrian representative, a being that looked like living, Crystal chimed softly. "The current agreements ensure all species have access to these vital resources. They have served us well for generations." Thore's 4 arms gestured dismissively. "Serve some of us well, perhaps. But the galaxy is changing. We need leadership that can make the hard decisions, not endless committees that debate while opportunities slip away." Lisa Carter leaned over to whisper to Jake. "She's going to demand exclusive rights. I can feel it coming." Jake nodded slightly. He had been expecting this for months. The Thore Confederation had been growing more aggressive in their trade negotiations, pushing for better deals and bigger shares of everything. They wanted to be the dominant power in the galaxy, and they were tired of pretending otherwise. "Therefore," Thore announced, "the Thore Confederation demands exclusive mining and distribution rights to all neutron-rich systems in the Kepler region. We have the technology, the ships, and the knowledge to extract these resources efficiently. We will, of course, ensure fair distribution to all member species." The chamber erupted in angry voices. The Cronin Empire representative, a massive creature covered in thick scales, roared his approval. The smaller species representatives looked scared. The Zephyrians began chiming in harmony, which was their way of showing distress. Jake Morrison stood up slowly. The chamber gradually quieted as beings noticed the human delegate on his feet. "Chancellor Thore," he said, his voice calm and clear. "What you're proposing would give your Confederation control over the energy supply of the entire galaxy. That's not fair distribution. That's economic dominance." Thore's large eyes focused on Jake. "And what would you suggest, human? More of your endless talking? More committees to study the problem while nothing gets done?" "I'll suggest we work together," Jake replied. "The Kepler systems are large enough to support multiple operations. We could create a joint venture, with each species contributing their strengths. The Thore have excellent extraction technology. The Zephyrians understand energy conversion better than anyone. The humans have logistics experience. Working together, we could triple the output while keeping costs low for everyone." Several representatives nodded and murmured agreement. The Zephyrian chimed hopefully. Even some of the Cronin delegation looked interested, but Thore was not impressed. "Typical human thinking," she said with a sound that might have been laughter. always trying to make everyone happy, always looking for the compromise that satisfies no one. You think small? Human? You think like a species that found space travel by accident rather than earning it through strength and intelligence? William started to stand, his face red with anger, but Jake put a hand on his shoulder. We found space travel the same way every species does, Chancellor. Through curiosity, hard work, and the desire to explore. There's no shame in that.
Oh.
Shame, perhaps, Vexetta said, but no vision either. You humans have been mediating our disputes for 2 centuries, and what has it gotten you? You have no empire, no great fleets, no monuments to your power. You serve others instead of leading them. We serve the cause of peace, Lisa Carter said. Standing next to Jake, we help build a galaxy where different species can work together instead of fighting each other. Peace, Vexthera repeated, and now there was definitely mockery in her voice. The dream of the weak. The strong take what they need and protect what they have. The weak talk about sharing and cooperation while others make the real decisions. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had spent his entire career trying to build bridges between species, trying to create a galaxy where everyone could prosper. But he was starting to understand that some beings saw cooperation as weakness and kindness as stupidity. So this is your final position? Jake asked. Exclusive Thor control of the Kepler systems with no input from other species? It is not a position, Vexera said. It is a fact. We will take control of those systems with or without Senate approval. The only question is whether the rest of you will work with us or against us. The Cronin representative roared again, louder this time. The Cronin Empire supports our Thor allies. Strength should be rewarded, not punished. Several smaller species representatives looked around nervously. Jake could see the fear in their eyes. They were afraid of the Thor, afraid of the Cronin, afraid of being left out of whatever new order was coming. Jake Morrison looked around the chamber, seeing the faces of beings he had worked with for years. Some looked ashamed, others looked scared, and a few looked excited by the prospect of a new power structure. He realized that the galaxy he had spent his life trying to build was already gone. These beings didn't want cooperation anymore. They wanted a strong leader to follow, even if that leader cared nothing for fairness or justice. I have one more proposal, Jake said quietly. The chamber fell silent again. What if we step back and let you handle this yourselves? Vexetta's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Jake said. Maybe it's time for humanity to stop mediating galactic affairs. Maybe it's time for us to focus on our own interests for a change. The chamber buzzed with confused voices. The Zephyrian representative chimed uncertainly. Even the Cronin looked puzzled. You cannot be serious, Vexthera said. Humans have been part of galactic civilization for centuries. You cannot simply walk away. Jake Morrison gathered his papers from the table. Lisa Carter and Sam Williams did the same. Watch us, Jake said simply. And with that, the 3 humans walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of confused and increasingly worried alien faces. None of them realized that the war was already over, and they had just lost. Captain Ben Rodriguez stared at the message on his screen for the 3rd time. The words were simple and clear, but their meaning was hard to believe. It was to recall all human ships from joint patrol operations immediately. No explanations to Allied fleets, no gradual phase-out. It's just a complete withdrawal within 72 hours. Ben had been commanding the human patrol fleet in the Outer Rim for 8 years. His ships worked alongside Zephyrian crystal vessels and Cronin battlecruisers, keeping trade routes safe from pirates and raiders. The cooperation between species had been so smooth that most crew members forgot they were working with aliens. They were just fellow officers doing the same job. Sir Lieutenant Nancy Brooks said from her station, "We're receiving confused signals from the Zephyrian fleet. They want to know why we're pulling back from the patrol grid." Ben looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Up there, mixed fleets of human and alien ships were stopping their patrols and turning around. The Zephyrians were trying to fill the gaps, but they didn't have enough ships. The Cronin vessels were too big and slow for patrol work. Without the humans, huge sections of space would be left unguarded. Tell them it's a temporary redeployment, Ben said finally. Fleet Command will contact them with details. But Ben knew there would be no details. The humans were leaving, and they weren't coming back. 3 systems away, Admiral Kate Thompson was overseeing an even bigger operation. The Joint Research Station at Wolf 359 had been humanity's pride for 50 years. Human scientists worked, alongside researchers from 6 different species, sharing knowledge and making discoveries that benefited everyone. Now Kate watched as transport ships loaded human personnel and equipment. Dr. Amy Walsh supervised the loading of her xenobiology lab. She had spent 15 years studying alien plant life, working with colleagues who had become close friends. Her research partner, a Zephyrian named Shalinara, stood nearby looking confused and hurt. Amy, Shalinara chimed softly. Why are you leaving? Did we do something wrong? Amy paused in her packing. She had been dreading this conversation. Not about you, Shalinara. It's about politics. The higher-ups have decided that humans need to focus on their own research for a while. But our work on the Kepler moss samples, Shalinara protested, we were so close to a breakthrough. The healing properties could help dozens of species. I'm leaving all my notes and samples, Amy said. You can continue the research. You're brilliant, Shalinara. You don't need me. But even as she said it, Amy knew it wasn't true. The human research methods were different from Zephyrian techniques. Equipment was calibrated for human use. Without human scientists, much of the research would have to start over from the beginning. Dan Foster and his engineering team worked through the night, transferring control codes and maintenance schedules to their alien counterparts. The stations, fusion reactors, water recycling systems, and artificial gravity generators had all been designed or modified by human engineers. The systems worked perfectly, but they were complex and needed regular maintenance. I don't understand half of these procedures, admitted Torquevale, the Cronin chief engineer. Your people have been handling the technical details for so long, we never learned the advanced systems. Don rubbed his tired eyes. I've written everything down in detail. Step-by-step instructions, troubleshooting guides, emergency procedures. It's all there. But what if something goes wrong that's not in the manual? Torquevale asked. Don didn't have a good answer for that. Human engineers had a way of solving problems that didn't exist in textbooks. They improvised, adapted, and found creative solutions. Those skills couldn't be taught through written instructions. Dr. Helen Martinez faced the hardest job of all. As head of the Human Medical Corps, she had to withdraw human doctors and medical staff from dozens of worlds. Many alien species had medical problems that only human doctors knew how to treat. Human medicine had advanced faster than most species, and human doctors had shared their knowledge freely. On the farming world of Kepler 4-4b, Dr. Martinez met with the local medical chief, a gentle being called Whisper of Wind. The planet grew, food for half the galaxy, but the farmers suffered from a disease that affected their respiratory systems. Human doctors had developed the only effective treatment. Dr. Martinez, Whisper Veen said in his soft voice, without your people, our farmers will become sick again. We cannot grow food if our workers cannot breathe. Helen had trained local doctors in the treatment procedures, but the medicine itself was manufactured on human worlds. I've left enough medicine for 6 months, she said. After that, you'll need to find another source. Where? Whisper of Wind asked. No other species makes this medicine. Helen had no answer. The humans had been the galaxy's medical suppliers for generations, developing treatments for diseases that affected species they had never even met. Without human pharmaceutical companies, many worlds would face health crises. Meanwhile, on the Thor homeworld, Supreme Chancellor Vexera was celebrating. She had called the human withdrawal a victory for strong leadership. The news broadcast showed Thor citizens cheering in the streets, happy that their government had stood up to the human monopoly on galactic affairs. Today marks the beginning of a new era, Vexera announced to her council. An era where decisions are made by those with the strength to enforce them, not by committees of weaklings seeking compromise. The Thor military was already moving to occupy former human positions. Thor ships patrolled trade routes, Thore administrators took over shipping schedules, and Thore companies bid for contracts that human businesses had abandoned. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, but some Thore officials were less optimistic. Finance Minister Krelthax had been studying the economic data, and what he found worried him. "Chancellor," he said during a private meeting, "the humans were involved in far more than we realized. They handled currency exchanges, shipping insurance, trade dispute resolution, and logistics coordination. Our people don't have experience in these areas." Vexera waved dismissively. "We'll learn. How hard can it be? Humans are not superior to us." "It's not about superiority," Krelthax insisted. "It's about experience. They've been doing these jobs for 2 centuries. They know the systems, the procedures, the shortcuts. Without them, everything will take longer and cost more." "Temporary problems," Vexera said. "The galaxy will adapt." The commander, Rick Peterson, was among the last humans to leave. His job had been coordinating the joint defense platform that protected the Centauri system. The platform used human-designed computers running human-written software to track thousands of ships every day. Without constant updates and maintenance, the system would gradually become less effective. Rick's replacement was a capable Zephyrian officer named Crystalline. She had worked with the human systems for years and understood them better than most. But understanding and maintaining were different things. "I've left detailed technical manuals," Rick told her as he packed his personal belongings. "Everything you need to know should be in there." "Should be." Crystalline chimed nervously. "Look," Rick said, "these systems are complicated. If something goes wrong that's not covered in the manual, you'll need to improvise. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to try new solutions." But Rick knew that improvisation required experience, and experience took time to develop. The Centauri system would be less safe without human oversight, at least for a while, as the last human transport ship jumped to hyperspace. Rick looked back at the defense platform through the ship's windows. The structure looked the same as always, but he knew it was already beginning to change, without humans to maintain it, upgrade it, and adapt it to new threats. The platform would slowly become obsolete. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships disappeared from patrol routes. Human doctors left their patients. Human engineers abandoned their projects. And human administrators closed their offices. The withdrawal was so professional and organized that most aliens barely noticed it happening. But the galaxy was about to discover just how much it had depended on human expertise. And by the time they realized what they had lost, it would be too late to get it back. 3 months after the humans left, the first real problems began to show. Dr. Paul Chang, human economist who had been studying on the Zephyrian homeworld when the withdrawal happened, was one of the few humans still in alien space. He had been allowed to stay because he was married to a Zephyrian and had 2 young children. His research was becoming more important every day. Paul sat in his office looking at charts and graphs that told a terrible story. The galactic economy was starting to break down in ways that most people didn't understand yet. Trade routes that had run smoothly for decades were now experiencing delays and problems. Ships were getting lost, cargo was arriving late, and costs were going up everywhere. The humans weren't just participants in the galactic economy. Paul explained to his Zephyrian colleague, Harmony of Numbers. They were the foundation of it. They handled currency exchanges between species, managed shipping schedules, and provided insurance for interstellar trade. Without them, the whole system is falling apart. Harmony of Numbers chimed worriedly. Surely other species can learn. These things, how difficult can it be? Paul shook his head. It's not about difficulty. It's about trust and experience. When a Thore company wanted to trade with a Cronin mining operation, they used human banks to handle the currency exchange. Humans were neutral, honest, and reliable. Now that the humans are gone, nobody trusts anybody else to handle their money. The problems were getting worse every day. On the agricultural world of Kepler 44b, the farmers were starting to get sick again. The medicine that human doctors had provided was running out, and no other species knew how to make it. Whisper Viewand, the local medical chief, had sent desperate messages to every pharmaceutical company in the galaxy. But none of them had the formula. "The humans always made it look so easy," Whisper whined, said to his assistant. "They would analyze a disease, develop a treatment, and have medicine ready in a few months. We've been trying for 3 months just to understand how they made the medicine we already have." The situation was even worse on the Joint Research Station at Wolf 359. Without human engineers, station systems were starting to fail. The fusion reactors were becoming unstable, and the gravity generators were producing fluctuations that made people sick. Torqueville, the Cronin engineer, worked day and night trying to fix problems that kept getting worse. "I've read the manuals 100 times, he told his assistant. But the humans didn't write down everything they knew. They had instincts, experience, ways of solving problems that can't be learned from books. The station's Zephorian administrator, Crystal Song, is getting pressure from her government to abandon the facility. "We cannot risk the lives of our researchers," she chimed to Torqueville. "If the systems fail completely, everyone could die." "Give me more time," Torqueville pleaded. "I'm learning, but these systems are more complex than we realized." But time was running out. The station had been designed to last for decades, with proper maintenance. But without human engineers, it was becoming dangerous to live there. The Cronin Empire was having its own problems. General Thokvar had been excited when the humans left, thinking it would be easy to expand into human territory. The Cronin military was strong and aggressive, and they had always been frustrated by human peacekeeping efforts. Now they could take what they wanted without human interference. Thokvar's invasion fleet had targeted 3 former human colonies in the Outer Rim. These worlds had been abandoned when the humans left, and they contained valuable mining equipment and industrial facilities. The Cronin expected easy victories against empty planets. Instead, they found themselves fighting battles against invisible enemies. The human colonies had been protected by automated defense systems that the Cronin had never seen before. These systems didn't just shoot at invaders. They seemed to think, to plan, to adapt to Cronin tactics. "How are we losing ships to empty planets?" Thokvar roared at his tactical officer. "There are no human soldiers there." "Sir," the officer replied nervously, "the defense systems are more advanced than we expected. They're using strategies we don't understand. They predict our movements and counter our attacks before we make them." Thokvar had lost 12 ships trying to capture 1 mining station. The automated defenses had used the Cronin's own aggressive tactics against them, turning their strength into weakness. Every time the Cronin tried a new approach, the defense systems adapted and found new ways to hurt them. The worst part was that the systems didn't seem to be trying to kill the Cronin. They were just making invasion impossible. Cronin ships that got too close found their engines disabled, their weapons jammed, their communications blocked. The crews were never hurt, but they were forced to retreat or be captured by their own allies. On the Thor homeworld, Supreme Chancellor Vexthera was getting reports that made her increasingly angry. The great victory she had celebrated 3 months ago was turning into a disaster. Thor colonies that had depended on human-maintained systems were experiencing failures and problems. "The atmospheric processors on Thor Prime 7 are failing," reported Colonial Minister Hexera. "The humans designed and maintained those systems. Without them, the air is becoming toxic. Food distribution networks are breaking down on 12 worlds," added Supply Minister Krelthax. "The humans coordinated shipping schedules and inventory management. Our people don't know how to handle the logistics for feeding billions of beings." Vexata slammed her 4 fists on the table. "Are you telling me that the mighty Thor Confederation cannot manage its own colonies without human help?" "I'm telling you that the humans were more involved in our civilization than we realized," Krelthax said carefully. "They handled thousands of small tasks that we never paid attention to. Now that they're gone, we're discovering how important those tasks were. The communication networks were failing too. The Thor had always been proud of their ability to coordinate activities across dozens of worlds. Their communication systems had been designed and maintained by human technicians. Without regular updates and maintenance, the networks were becoming unreliable. We're losing contact with outer colonies, reported Communication Minister Thore. The relay stations are going offline one by one. We can't coordinate relief efforts if we can't talk to our people. Vexeta felt a cold fear growing in her chest. The humans had been telling the truth when they said they were leaving. They weren't hiding somewhere, waiting to be asked back. They were actually gone, and they had taken with them knowledge and skills that the Thore had never bothered to learn. Send envoys to find the humans, she ordered. Offer them better terms, more respect, whatever they want. We need them back. But her ministers looked at each other nervously. Chancellor Krelthak said slowly, "We don't know where they went. The humans didn't just leave our territory. They left known space entirely. No one knows where they are." The truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. The humans hadn't just been mediators and peacekeepers. They had been the invisible foundation that held galactic civilization together. They had handled the boring, complicated, essential tasks that kept billions of beings fed, housed, and healthy. They had been so good at their jobs that other species had forgotten they were even doing them. On the Zephyrian homeworld, the crystal cities were experiencing power problems. The harmonic resonance systems that powered their civilization had been designed by human engineers working with Zephyrian scientists. The Zephyrians understood the theory, but they had never learned the practical details of maintenance and repair. Engineer Crystalline worked desperately to keep her city's power systems running. "The resonance patterns are becoming unstable," she reported to the city council. "Without the human modifications, our power grid cannot handle the energy demands." "What do you need?" asked the council leader. "I need the humans who designed these systems," Crystalline chimed sadly. "But they're gone, and I don't know how to find them." The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. The humans had been more than just another species in the galactic community. They had been the engineers, doctors, administrators, and peacemakers who made interstellar civilization possible. Without them, the galaxy was slowly falling apart, and the humans were nowhere to be found. 9 months after the humans disappeared, the galactic economy was in complete freefall. Dr. Maria Santos, one of the few human economists who had remained in known space, published a report that shocked every government in the galaxy. She had been working alone from a small research station in the Outer Rim, carefully documenting the collapse of interstellar civilization. Maria's report was titled, "The Hidden Foundation: How Humanity Subsidized Galactic Civilization." The numbers she presented were devastating. For over 2 centuries, humans had been quietly preventing economic wars between species through currency stabilization programs that most governments didn't even know existed. When the Thore wanted to buy Chronon metals, Maria wrote, they used Thore currency. When the Chronon wanted to buy Zephyrian crystals, they used Chronon credits. But these currencies had very different values that changed every day. Someone had to manage the exchange rates to prevent economic chaos. That someone was always human banks. The report showed that human financial institutions had been absorbing losses for generations to keep trade flowing smoothly. They had loaned money to struggling colonies, provided insurance for risky shipping routes, maintained emergency reserves that prevented market crashes. Without these hidden supports, the galactic economy was collapsing like a house built on sand. On the Zephyrian homeworld, engineer Crystalline was fighting a losing battle against failing infrastructure. The crystal cities that had stood for thousands of years were going dark, one by one. The harmonic resonance systems that powered Zephyrian civilization were incredibly advanced, but they needed constant fine-tuning that only human engineers had understood. "The resonance patterns are becoming chaotic," Crystalline reported to the Emergency Council. "I've tried everything in the technical manuals, but the systems keep degrading." The humans didn't just maintain these systems, they improved them constantly. Without those improvements, the technology is reverting to its original, less efficient state. The council leader chimed with desperation. "How long do we have? 6 months? Maybe less," Crystalline replied. "After that, we'll lose power to the major cities. Millions of Zephyrians will have to evacuate to the rural areas." Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The Joint Research Station at Wolf 359 had been abandoned after a catastrophic fusion reactor failure that nearly killed everyone aboard. The Centauri defense platform was operating at 30% efficiency, leaving the system vulnerable. 2. Pirate attacks. Food distribution networks had collapsed on dozens of worlds. Captain Tony Mitchell commanded the last human vessel in known space, a medical ship called the UES Defiant. Tony had refused orders to withdraw, claiming that his ship was needed for humanitarian missions. The truth was more complicated. Tony couldn't bear to watch alien civilizations collapse without offering some help. The Defiant responded to distress calls across the galaxy, but Tony followed strict rules. His crew would rescue stranded beings and provide emergency medical care, but they wouldn't repair the systems that humans had once maintained. They were observers now, not participants. "Captain," reported Chief Medical Officer Dr. Linda Parker, "we're receiving another distress call from the Kepler Agricultural World. The farmers are dying from the respiratory disease again." Tony stared at the message on his screen. He had the medicine those farmers needed in his ship's medical bay. He had doctors who knew how to treat the disease. But his orders were clear: humanitarian aid only, no technological assistance. "Send them medical supplies," Tony ordered. "Enough. For 2 weeks, and include instructions for basic treatment," Dr. Parker said carefully. "They need the advanced medicine we manufacture. Basic treatment won't save them." "I know," Tony replied quietly. "But we can't solve their problems. For them anymore, they have to learn to stand on their own." The hardest part for Tony was watching civilizations that he had spent his career protecting slowly fall apart. The humans had been more than just peacekeepers and mediators. They had been the galaxy's problem solvers, the ones who found ways to make impossible things work. Meanwhile, the Cronin Empire was tearing itself apart. General Thokvar's failed invasions had triggered rebellions in the outer territories. Cronin colonies that had been conquered decades ago saw the military's weakness and declared independence. Without human administrative systems to help manage their empire, the Cronin couldn't coordinate their response to multiple rebellions. "We need more ships," Thokvar demanded from his field commander. "The rebels are using our own weapons against us." "Sir," the commander replied, "half our fleet is stuck in maintenance because we don't understand the human-designed logistics systems. The other half is trying to capture empty human worlds that keep defeating us with automated defenses." Cronin had discovered that human military technology was far more advanced than they had realized. The automated defense systems weren't just weapons. They were intelligent programs that learned from each battle and shared information with other systems across the galaxy. Every time the Cronon attacked a human facility, the defenses got smarter. "How can we fight an enemy that learns from our mistakes faster than we can make them?" Thokvar asked his tactical advisors. "We can't," admitted Chief Strategist Grokvul. "The human systems are designed to defend against species like us. They know our tactics, our weaknesses, our patterns of thinking. They're always 3 steps ahead." On the Thor homeworld, Supreme Chancellor Vexera was dealing with the complete breakdown of colonial administration. 12 worlds had declared independence when their life support systems failed and the Thor government couldn't help them. Food riots were breaking out on the remaining loyal worlds as distribution networks collapsed. The humans designed everything, Colonial Minister Hexara reported with exhaustion. Not just the big systems, but thousands of small programs that handled routine tasks. Scheduling, inventory, maintenance, reminders, quality control checks. Without these programs, our administrators don't know what to do each day. Vexera had been searching for the humans for months, sending envoys to every corner of known space. But the humans had vanished completely. Their worlds were empty. Their ships were gone, and no one had any idea where they had relocated. "Have we found any trace of them?" she asked Intelligence Minister Zexthera. "Nothing," Zexthera replied. "It's as if they never existed. They removed every trace of their presence from galactic records, took all their technology, and disappeared. Beyond the rim of known space, the most frightening part was that the humans had planned this withdrawal perfectly. They hadn't left in anger or panic. They had methodically dismantled their involvement in galactic civilization while pretending everything was normal. The whole operation had been carefully planned and flawlessly executed. Admiral Grace Kim was one of the few people who knew where the humans had gone. From her command center in the new human capital beyond the galactic rim, she monitored the collapse through intelligence networks that the aliens didn't know existed. Her reports to the Human Council were detailed and precise. Economic collapse is proceeding faster than projected, Grace reported to President Morrison. The Thore Confederation has lost 40% of its colonial holdings. The Cronin Empire is fragmenting into independent warlord states. The Zephyrian Union is facing power shortages that will force massive population relocations. President Morrison, the former ambassador who had walked out of the Galactic Senate, listened to the reports with mixed feelings. He felt no satisfaction in watching alien civilizations collapse, but he wasn't surprised by what was happening. "Any word from the Galactic Senate?" Morrison asked. "The Senate stopped meeting 4 months ago," Grace replied. "Without human mediation, the member species couldn't agree on anything. Most governments are too busy dealing with internal crises to participate in galactic politics." Morrison nodded sadly. "And the search efforts? 17 species have sent envoys looking for us. None of them have come within 50 light-years of our new territories. We're completely invisible to their detection methods." The humans had chosen their new home carefully. Beyond the galactic rim, in a region of space that other species considered empty and worthless, they had found a cluster of habitable worlds, rich in resources. Using technology that other species didn't understand, they had built a new civilization that was completely independent from the galactic community. "Sir," Grace continued, "we're also receiving the first formal apologies. The Zephyrian Union sent a message acknowledging that they had failed to appreciate human contributions to galactic stability. The message asks for renewed cooperation and mutual respect." Morrison read the message on his personal display. The words were formal and diplomatic, but he could read the desperation between the lines. The Zephyrians were facing the collapse of their energy infrastructure. They needed human help, and they were finally willing to admit it. "File it with the others," Morrison said. "How many apologies have we received so far?" 47, Grace replied. "From governments, corporations, and private organizations. All asking for help, all promising better treatment, all claiming they never realized how important humans were to galactic civilization." 1 year after the human exodus, the Galactic Senate chamber sat empty and dark. The great hall that had once hosted representatives from dozens of worlds now collected dust and silence. The institution that had united different species for 4 centuries had crumbled completely. Member worlds were too busy fighting for survival to care about galactic politics. Captain Laura Thompson, Zephyrian naval officer, was exploring the abandoned human sections of Centauri Station when she found something that would change everything. Hidden in a sealed compartment behind Commander Peterson's old desk was a data packet marked with human writing. "Open in emergency." Laura had been working with human officers for years before they left. She knew enough human language to understand the message, and she definitely knew an emergency when she saw one. Her homeworld was dying, her people were starving, and her government was too proud to admit they needed help. The data packet contained a recorded message from Ambassador Jake Morrison. Laura watched his familiar face appear on the screen, looking tired but determined. The message had been recorded right after the humans walked out of the Senate chamber 1 year ago. "If you're watching this," Morrison began, "then the galaxy has learned what happens when cooperation is seen as weakness and partnership is mistaken for servitude. We didn't leave in anger, though we had every right to be angry. We left because some lessons can only be learned through experience." Morrison's image looked directly at the camera. For 2 centuries, humans served as mediators, peacekeepers, engineers, doctors, and administrators. We did this not because we were weak, but because we believed in a galaxy where different species could work together. We thought our actions spoke louder than our words, but we were wrong. Our willingness to serve was seen as proof that we were servants. Laura chimed softly in distress. She remembered how her own people had sometimes talked about humans, describing them as useful but not particularly important. The humans had been so good at their jobs that everyone had taken them for granted. The Thore Confederation demanded. "We kneel or leave," Morrison continued. We chose to leave. But we didn't just leave the Senate chamber. We left the entire galaxy, taking with us every piece of technology, every system, every service that we had provided. You wanted to see how strong you were without human weakness. Now you know. The message revealed the truth that no alien government wanted to admit. The humans hadn't just participated in galactic civilization. They had built it, maintained it, and held it together through 2 centuries of careful, invisible work. Without them, the galaxy was returning to the way it had been. Before humans arrived, divided, suspicious, and constantly at war. "We offered partnership," Morrison said. "You demanded submission. We withdraw not in anger, but in recognition that some lessons must be learned alone." Laura transmitted the message to her government immediately. Within hours it was being broadcast. Across the galaxy. For the first time, alien leaders saw proof that the humans had anticipated everything that was happening. They had known their withdrawal would cause chaos. And they had done it anyway. On the Thore homeworld. Supreme Chancellor Vexera watched the message in her private chambers. Her mighty confederation had lost half its territory to rebellions. And system failures. Billions of Thore citizens were living in emergency shelters because their cities had become uninhabitable. The species that had once dominated galactic politics was now struggling to feed its own people. "Send a formal message to the humans," she ordered her remaining advisors. "Tell them the Thore Confederation formally apologizes for our actions. Offer them anything they want. Territory, resources, political power. We need them back." Chancellor Intelligence Minister Zexthera said quietly, "We still don't know where they are. Our search teams have found nothing. It's as if the humans have vanished from the universe, but the humans hadn't vanished. They were thriving in their new home beyond the galactic rim, building a civilization that was entirely their own." Dr. Kevin Park, working from the Department of Galactic Affairs, monitored the old galaxy through hidden sensors and automated systems that the aliens still didn't know existed. "The automated protocols are activating on schedule," Kevin reported. To President Morrison, "Transportation networks are shutting down, communication arrays are going dark, and the infrastructure systems are entering permanent lockdown mode." Morrison nodded grimly. "How many worlds are affected?" "Over 3,000 so far," Kevin replied. "Every planet that used human-designed infrastructure is losing basic services. The failsafes we built into the systems are triggering because they haven't received proper maintenance codes in over a year. The humans had planned for this possibility. Every system they had built, every network they had maintained, every service they had provided had hidden protocols that would shut everything down if humans weren't there to maintain it. The galaxy was discovering that human involvement hadn't just been helpful, it had been essential. On the agricultural world of Kepler 4-4 to be the farming communities were evacuating as their atmospheric processors failed completely. The medical chief, who had pleaded with Dr. Martinez a year ago, led a convoy of refugees toward the spaceport. Most of his people were sick with the respiratory disease that only human medicine could treat. "Where will we go?" asked one of the farmers. "I don't know," Whisper whined, replied honestly. "No other worlds want refugees who carry diseases they can't cure. The humans were the only ones who knew how to help us." Similar evacuations were happening across the galaxy. Worlds that had depended on human technology were becoming uninhabitable. The Zephyrian crystal cities went dark, one by one, as their power systems failed. Cronin mining operations stopped working when their equipment broke down without human maintenance. Even the Thore homeworld was experiencing rolling blackouts as their energy grid collapsed. The few humans still in alien space were overwhelmed with desperate requests for help. Captain Tony Mitchell and his medical ship received hundreds of distress calls every day, but he could only help a fraction of the people who needed assistance. His orders remained the same: humanitarian aid only, no technological support. Captain Dr. Linda Parker reported sadly, "We just received word that the Wolf 359 research station has been completely abandoned. The Zephyrian government ordered a full evacuation after the life support systems failed. Tony stared at the report. That station had been humanity's pride for 50 years, a symbol of interspecies cooperation and shared knowledge. Now it was a dead hulk floating in space, too dangerous for anyone to approach. "Sir," his communications officer added, "we're also receiving a priority message from Admiral Thompson. We're ordered to return to human space immediately. The last phase of the withdrawal is beginning." Tony knew what that meant. The humans were about to sever their final connections to the old galaxy. After this, there would be no human ships. In alien space, no human observers, no human help of any kind. The aliens would be completely on their own. President Morrison stood before the Human Council in the capital city of New Terra, reading the final reports from the old galaxy. Representatives from every human colony beyond the rim listened as he described the collapse of the civilization they had once served. "The Galactic Senate has formally dissolved," Morrison announced. "The last member species withdrew 3 days ago. The Thore Confederation has fragmented into 12 independent states. The Cronin Empire has collapsed into civil war. The Zephyrian Union is evacuating its core worlds due to infrastructure failure." The council chamber was quiet. These humans had once worked alongside the aliens who were now suffering. Many had friends among the alien species, colleagues they had respected and cared about. They also remembered the contempt, the dismissal, the assumption that humans were servants rather than partners. "We've received over 2,000 formal apologies," Morrison continued. "Governments, corporations, individuals, all asking for forgiveness and requesting our return. The messages all say the same thing. They never realized how important we were. They never meant to show disrespect. They promised to treat us as equals if we come back." Counselor Sarah Walsh raised her hand. "What's our response, Mr. President?" Morrison held up a datapad containing the latest message, this one from Nano. "The Reformed Galactic Emergency Council. They're offering us complete political autonomy, exclusive rights to our former territories, and leadership positions in a new galactic government. They're promising to treat humans as the dominant species in any future alliance." "And your recommendation?" asked Counselor Brian Foster. Morrison smiled sadly. "File it with the others. Perhaps in another century, when they've learned to stand on their own feet, they'll be ready to treat us as equals instead of either servants or masters. But not today." The galaxy had learned too late that the humans who walked away without a word had been holding their entire civilization together. The Thore Confederation's victory had been the beginning of their defeat, and the war was lost the moment they chose dominance over partnership. Outside the council chamber windows, human children played in parks designed by human architects, ate food grown by human farmers, and breathed air cleaned by human technology.